Welcome back to LEGO Wars. Tonight we kick off the 5th year of action in the arena with our 3rd annual All-Star special, bringing in the best the series has to offer alongside fan favourites all gunning for Waddledee Meta's crown after the Series 2 champions edged a nail-biting judge's decision over Atlas last year. The format for All-Stars remains the same with a straight knockout competition, but before we reveal the lineup we do have a change of voice behind the scenes as our resident commentator for the last 4 years, Anderson, is hanging up his headset, so we'll pass across to him and our new commentator.
Hey guys, it's me, Anderson9132, aka the Robot Wars Guru, and for the last 4 years now, the voice of LEGO Wars, at least as far as a commentary standpoint is concerned. I've had a blast these last 4 years and really enjoyed being part of the team that has entertained so many people on the platform. However, it is with a slightly heavy heart that I must announce that I, Anderson9132, voice of Poseidon himself, am stepping down from the mic. Now don't worry, this isn't because I've been arrested or anything like that. I'm not that level of robot combat commentator just yet. My reasons for leaving are much less interesting. Simply put, I don't have the time anymore. Not only do I have a full-time job and a wonderful wife and teenage daughter to look after, but last year my wife and I also acquired a baby girl. I'm pretty sure I don't need to go into the details about how much time all those combined takes out of my time, and it showed last year as I struggled to meet most deadlines when it came to commentary. It sucks, but alas, it's for the best. Not only do I get more time with my family and friends, but it means I won't be the cause for delays or a downgrade in quality. Speaking of downgrades in quality, I know it's impossible to replace the king of commentary himself, especially one who is so handsome and wonderful like myself. However, a kind of suitable replacement has been found in the form of Sam Elliott64. Yes, I know he looks like a horse on meth, but now he's stepped down as Robocast host, all he really does is sit around his house in his underpants doing nothing. Also, he's cheaper than a half-eaten bag of skips. Before I go, I'd just like to say a big thank you to David of Smeg for allowing me to do comms on LEGO Wars these last 4 years, and a huge thank you to my good friend World of Woodrow for recommending me in the first place. Also, a massive thank you to anyone out there who has supported my part in this awesome series over the years. It really means the world to me. With all that said, I want to wish good luck to Sam in the commentary booth. He has a big seat to fill, mostly because I'm incredibly fat. Thanks once again, and take care. Also, Atlas was robbed in the All-Star.
Hi everyone, my name is Sam Elliott64, and you may recognise me, or indeed my voice, from the Robocast podcast on YouTube, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasts. I will be your new commentator for this series of LEGO Wars. David very kindly offered me the position after Anderson decided to hang up his microphone. I'm going to try my absolute damnedest to keep the entertainment and fun factor high as best I can do. I've got some big shoes to fill. But yeah, let's get to it.
We'll miss you, Anderson, but a very warm welcome to Sam as our new commentator. Now let's see the lineup for tonight's special. First up, it's last year's runner-up Atlas against the LEGO Wars stalwart Weldor M, followed by 2 golden oldies of the series, Panic Attack and Sweepy. Fight 3 sees Series 3 grand finalist Emulator face the resident full-body spinner White Hole before the reigning champs Tantrum make their All-Stars debut against Dior. The second half of this round kicks off with Shatter Star v Duck, followed by Series 3 champs Agro against Mecha Bowser. The penultimate fight sees the first international champs Petunia take on the latest Megalania before we end this round with the defending All-Stars champs Waddledee against Zoidy Blue. Let's pass across to Sam and get stuck in.
Roboteers, stand by. 3, 2, 1, activate.
Away we go then for LEGO Wars All-Stars, with Weldor and Atlas meeting in the arena for the 3rd time in their history. Current record between the two, 1-1. Atlas, though, will be trying to tip those scales in their favour. In underneath, Weldor lifting up the big scoop at the front, smothering that spinner and stopping it in its tracks, but Weldor moves away. In recent years, it's become a lot more potent, Weldor, it has to be said. Weldor, though, coming into contact with that big bucket at the front of Atlas and gonna push them into that corner. Now, you may notice there are 2 big slots cut out in the arena wall this year to throw your opponents out of the arena should you so desire, but Atlas so far not really bothering with that and just turning Weldor straight on its back. And Weldor cannot right itself from there. Atlas, I think, is going to take a very, very comfortable win here. The former winners of the International Special and YouTubers Special, aiming for a 3rd title to add to its repertoire, and I think is going to be winning today against Weldor M, who are up and over and counted out now.
6.
And Atlas progressed through to the next round of the All-Stars. a pretty simple by-the-numbers fight, really, for Atlas. You can see they're getting in underneath the spinning weapon of Weldor, lifting the wheels off the ground, preventing them from escaping. Weldor did get a few spins up, but nothing to trouble Atlas, using the big bucket scoop you can see there to get in underneath and get a good grip on the underside of Weldor. And once it was over, that's the end of the fight. Atlas goes through to the next round of the All-Stars.
Atlas is showing no signs of age as they finally toppled the Northern Irish boss at the third attempt to move on. Next up is two of my favourites in LEGO Wars, Panic Attack and Sweepy, facing one another for the first time.
Roboteers, stand by. 3, 2, 1, activate.
So Panic Attack starting off to our right, Sweepy getting its overhead bar spinner up to speed and shuffling to the arena centre. That's where they like to stay and kind of dictate the pace of the fight. Panic Attack, oh, big slam there. Off comes part of the face of a slightly, updated and upgraded Panic Attack. They've, updated the frame to try and, mitigate the issues they took from the real life Panic Attack, and they're doing, a good job of that at the moment, showing that by lifting up Sweepy, who has also changed its frame this year with a new, sleeker design. Panic Attack activates the pit release button. Something's gone down in the pit there. I'm not sure exactly what it was. It might be part of the pit mechanism itself. David, get that fixed! Comes out of my paycheck. Panic Attack in underneath Sweepy, trying to maneuver the awkward shuffling beast away, but Panic Attack's face has been completely caved in, look! That weapon of Sweepy, it is a sluggish and cumbersome machine, Sweepy, but when it connects, it really, really connects, and Panic Attack is feeling the strain at the moment. Of course, All-Stars champions in the first All-Stars, and of course the first series of LEGO Wars champion back in the day. Sweepy yet to get a real, proper title to its name, but an absolute fan favourite, and there, causing awful damage to the top of Panic Attack. That's more like it. That's what we want to see. Bits and pieces flying off each of the robots, the eyes at the front of Sweepy looking inside. Panic Attack trying to see any potential weak spots. Sweepy slowly coming towards Panic Attack. What can Panic Attack do though? They've got to try and maneuver Sweepy, I think, towards the pit and hopefully in it for their sake, but Panic Attack at the moment struggling. They haven't been able to really get a good control of the fight since those early exchanges. It's been Sweepy, for my money so far, that's been on top. Oh, and a big slam in there on top again. And Panic Attack's lifting forks have become separated. Look, they've split at the front end. That's not ideal for them. They'll have to try and figure out how to maneuver themselves around this. But so far, I'd say that Sweepy is looking pretty good. Good damage caused to the top of Panic Attack. The top armor been lifted away. What can Panic Attack do to turn the pace of the fight in their favour? Sweepy, it's just relentless. It just keeps coming forward and forward and forward. And just shuffling and plodding along. Panic Attack has been through the wars in this fight. Let's face it, it's not looking as pristine as it was at the start of the fight. Can they turn the fight around? Sweepy, the only time that weapon comes into check is with the armor of Panic Attack. We're into our last 5 seconds now. It's going to take a miracle for Panic Attack, but it's going to go to a judge's decision
6
to decide who goes through to the next round. Well, Sweepy clearly causing more damage there. Panic Attack was able to dictate the pace of the fight, as is kind of natural with Sweepy as the design of the robot. You see here Panic Attack lifting Sweepy up. But for the majority of the fight, it was Sweepy who was causing the damage and causing the carnage here. Off comes the top panel of Panic Attack there. You see there Panic Attack trying to get underneath, and it does do so every now and then, get in underneath, but it just couldn't control the fight, and I think that could be crucial with the judges.
And the winner, by unanimous decision, is Sweepy! Panic Attack's wayward form in the specials rears its head once more as the shuffler moves on to the quarterfinals. Now it's time for the revamped Emulator to take on White Hole.
Roboteers, stand by. 3, 2, 1, activate.
Emulator starts off its weapon, as does White Hole. The two kind of having a quick look at each other before coming to blows. Of course, Emulator recovering from a pretty disappointing season last time around. They didn't make it out of the heat as the second seed. Of course, Emulator wanted to put that right this time around and cause it. Oh, well, that's not going immediately to plan. White Hole causing enormous damage to Emulator's front, ripping off part of that wedge setup, and another fork has gone as well. White Hole, though, retreats to the safety of the arena gap. I don't know if that's what it's going to be called. I've actually recorded this before. Whatever. It's breaking the fourth wall here. Emulator is trying to do something to White Hole. White Hole's not really spinning up to speed and causing the carnage that we're used to seeing from the full body spinner. And Emulator is kind of cutting down the angles well, closing down White Hole, ensuring that they can get maximum purchase with their own weapon and not taking as much hits as they can from the White Hole full body spinner weaponry. Emulator is a fearsome beast, not to be underestimated. I said they had a poor season last year, but they are back and improved. White Hole up to speed. Oh, the pit button activated. Oh, and off goes one of the tracks, though, of Emulator. And will that be costly? White Hole has caused massive damage to Emulator. The weaponry still runs on Emulator, but not one of the tracks. The track has been split. But White Hole, oh, that was poor.
6.
Oh, that was poor from White Hole. Emulator were a limping robot. They're out, though, White Hole, in the pit and eliminated from the All-Stars. 2 robots recovering from poor seasons in LEGO Wars Series 4 didn't make it out of the heat, either of them, and White Hole started probably more impressively, ripping off that front panel of Emulator, Emulator bailing for the pit. Good tactic from them, but the track ripped off, but White Hole, poor driving, Emulator capitalising and shoving White Hole down.
A bruising fight for the new Emulator wedge, but they're through to the next round where they'll face either the Series 4 champs Tantrum or the Polka Dot Peril Dior.
Roboteers, stand by. 3, 2, 1, activate.
Tantrum off and underway then, using that big spinner. That 4th LEGO Wars champion finally gets its turn in the All-Stars competition. So far though, Dior using that bucket scoop to kind of deflect the weapon of Tantrum. Interesting tactics from Dior early doors here. They've also had a bit of a purple patch in recent years, but the purple patch might need to become an eye patch as Tantrum has ripped off one of those eyes of Dior. Oh, well, that wasn't clever tactics. I was going to say clever tactics using the scoop to try and deflect the spinner, but you missed, lads. You've missed. And Tantrum has kind of just wrecked Dior's world. Side armour ripped away, front armour ripped away, all the armour ripped away at this point. What can Dior do to turn around the pace of the fight? There's not much you can do against Tantrum. It's an absolute sturdy little brick of a machine, and so far has been, well, over the last couple of series, been the class of the field, and Dior up against it in the first round of the All-Stars, although Dior here bravely pushing back on Tantrum. Pushed into the corner by those Uta zones, which Dior hope to benefit from, trying to flip robots out of the arena. A new feature for LEGO Wars going forward. Tantrum, though, will be trying to make sure that doesn't happen, using its own weapon to try and rip off that little flapping bit of side armour covering the wheel like that. Well on Tantrum, making me not look like an idiot, makes a change in commentary positions. No curse on the commentator here for Tantrum. So far, the current LEGO Wars champion have been pretty dominant thus far. Dior haven't really been able to do much. That initial good tactic of using the scoop to deflect the weapon has kind of faded away. Dior went for the pit button, doesn't activate the pit on this occasion, goes for it one more time, still nothing, now does. Pit activated. Is that the tactic now left to Dior? Just shove Tantrum straight in the pit. It'd be a big ask. Tantrum is a very, very good control bot first, and then the weapon, the icing on the cake. But what can Dior do? We've seen people lulled into the pit on previous occasions. Dior chases Tantrum down. Oh, and another big slam by Tantrum. And Tantrum trying to return favour to Dior, trying to push them down the pit. But good escape from Dior. Are they going to escape for much longer? I don't know. Tantrum closing the angles and pushing the carcass of Dior into the pit.
6.
It will be Tantrum that goes through to the next round, and Dior eliminated from the All-Stars, despite a little protest with the lifter at the end. Well, it was always up against a bit of a stiff challenge, Dior taking on the series champions, but I have to say Dior was very brave and very tenacious in their efforts to try and stop the champions, but once Tantrum got a hold of the fight, there was no coming back for Dior. We'll have to look forward to more using of that new reprofiled scoop and front end and drive system of Dior later on in the competition, but that is the end of their All-Stars run this time around.
An imperious performance from the defending champs as they stamp their authority over the Irish bot regress. We now move on to the other side of the bracket as the veteran retcon machine Shatter Star faces the third international champs Duck.
Roboteers, stand by. 3, 2, 1, activate.
Shatter Star and Duck then go head to head, and that new hammer on top of Shatter Star trying to cause some damage to the top of Duck. Duck with its own new weapon as well. Apparently the old one had started to crack and has such been replaced with the new lifter arm that you see right in front of you there with the kind of hammer point that they had previously. Now, Shatter Star pushing Duck back. Apparently the overheating issue that has plagued Shatter Star for many a year has now been addressed, and it's now quote-unquote bulletproof. We'll have to wait and see how that turns out. But Duck so far using that arm pretty well in terms of trying to prevent Shatter Star causing damage. Shatter Star fails for the hit button and pushes Duck back again. Shatter Star going weapon to weapon once more with Duck. Duck using the lifter pretty well again to kind of deflect Shatter Star's hammer. Duck is of course a very nice low flat target for Shatter Star to hit, so they'll be hoping to score some more points by using the hammer to maybe try and, you know, knock some pieces off. There's the little 360 loop from Duck. Duck using the brace once again to prevent a good contact being made there from Shatter Star. Good tactic so far from Duck, but you know, what are they going to do in an aggressive sense? We haven't really seen them lift Shatter Star over. That was a good attempt, but not quite getting a good enough purchase on it. Shatter Star, down comes the hammer. Oh! And into the panel gap on the top of Duck there. Now, can Shatter Star use this to their advantage? Can they pull Duck maybe towards the pit, maybe towards a hazard in the arena? So far, Shatter Star not really making much of it, and Shatter Star has stopped working. Is that bulletproof drivetrain under threat? Well, apparently not. We're back underway once again, but Duck is stuck on top of those forks of Shatter Star, so when they do get stuck there, they can't push themselves away. Something came flying out of the bottom of Duck there. I don't know what it was. Something's dragging along the floor. I'm pretty sure of it, but Shatter Star has now stopped once again. Are those thermal issues back again for Shatter Star? Meanwhile, Duck is now starting to get a bit of a hand in this fight. Shatter Star need to be careful they don't get pushed down the pit. Duck, as we know, just has a habit of keeping going and keeping running. It is a fabulous, fabulous robot. Over the years has been an absolute warhorse of a robot in this competition. Shatter Star, meanwhile, has a promise, but nothing really to shout about here in this fight. Not many seconds left. I think you're going to go to a judge's decision as Shatter Star once again gets the hammer inside that panel gap, and that'll be the lasting image for the judges as we go to time. Tough one for the judges to decide. Good back and forth here between these two. Shatter Star was the early aggressor, using its new hammer to great effectiveness. We saw it more aggressively using its weapon, whereas Duck was a little bit more defensive in its usage of its new lifter arm. Duck doing little pirouettes as it's wanted to do. Shatter Star controlling the early pace of the fight, and there causing a big moment in the fight, using its weapon to get stuck in Duck's panel gap. Duck didn't really get any aggressive hits off in the fight, and I feel that could be crucial with the judges.
And the winner by unanimous decision is Shatter Star. The receiver damage made the difference as Shatter Star moves on to the top 8. Let's see if it will be an all-axe affair as Agro faces Mecha Bowser.
Roboteers, stand by. 3, 2, 1, activate.
Mecha Bowser and Agro Wubba come face to face then. Two fan favourites, has to be said. Agro Wubba with the face at the front. Oh! Well, not anymore. Ripped away by Mecha Bowser. Brilliant attack there from the King of the Koopas, and a big slam down of the hammer, causing damage to the shell, the spinning shell at the back of Mecha Bowser. What can Agro Wubba do though? Very effective. They're former champions of LEGO Wars, of course. Let's not forget that. They've got lots of pedigree. And of course, the former winners of the All-Stars have all come from champions of the main series, but there is some key damage to Agro Wobber's front end. The wedge shape at the front ripped away, and they've bailed for the pit already. How significant will that damage be for Agro Wobber? Mecha Bowser, top heavy maybe, but they are still very effective. That weapon is so dangerous when it gets up to speed and doing damage like that, ripping away the entire front wedge, and now the top armour of Agro Wobber. Well, Agro Wobber, work to do here. They're bringing the hammer down, but can they turn the tide of the fight around? Because Agro Wobber here are under pressure. Mecha Bowser have caused massive damage to that front end. They've ripped the wedge off and leaving all those motors, the juicy innards of the former champions, now exposed. Agro Wobber, though, they know how to win fights. They know how to win championships, crucially. They know it's not a marathon, it's a marathon and not a sprint. Can they turn this fight around? They've got plenty of time to do so, but they'll have to be wary that the more that Mecha Bowser's weapon comes into contact with them, the more they're going to get damaged. Good axe strikes there by Agro Wobber, but it's not really doing much at the moment. They've knocked some of the spines off the shell at the back. You can see one on the floor at the front of your picture, but at the moment, the significant damage is that to Agro Wobber. The front end ripped away. Oh, and another slam there from Agro Wobber onto the weapon at the back, but it's the only time that weapon at the back of Mecha Bowser stops is when it comes into contact with Agro Wobber, and again ripping more top armor off. There's nothing left of Agro Wobber. It's just a skeleton. There's nothing left of it. I've heard of Dry Bowser being a bit of a skeleton, but this isn't Dry Bowser. This is Mecha Bowser. This is Dry Agro Wobber, or Dry Wobberfett, if you will. Well, work to do here for the former series champions. They are in major peril of losing here to Mecha Bowser and its angled horizontal spinner. Now using the rear end because, let's face it, they've not got anything going on at the front. They've got nothing going on at the front. The axe is looking limp and lifeless, and I think is limp and lifeless, and now they're high-centered on their own armour as well. Agro Wobber have got so much work to do and not much time left to do it. We're down to the last 5 seconds to go, and I think it's going to be a very tall order for them to win this fight.
6.
What a performance from Mecha Bowser, though. Brilliant work from the horizontal spinner. Agro Wobber will be left scratching their heads. Well, it was all action right from the start. Agro Wobber's face ripped away by Mecha Bowser from the word go. Agro Wobber did respond, but that was the significant damage of the fight, wasn't it? The front end getting ripped away slightly. Cosmetic damage only really caused to Mecha Bowser. That, the whole front wedge being ripped away, scuppered Agro Wobber's game plan, didn't it? And as the fight wore on, more bits and pieces flew off Mecha Bowser, but only superficial, whereas key structural damage was caused to Agro Wobber.
And the winner by unanimous decision is Mecha Bowser. A massive upset as the Cyborg Koopa delivers its best fight to date to rip off Agro Wobber's front end and dump the Series 3 champs out of the competition. Let's see if there'll be any more upsets as Petunia faces Megalania.
Roboteers, stand by. 3, 2, 1, activate.
Petunia to the right, Megalania to the left. Sluggish start there from the Megalania weapon, but now looks like it's up to speed, and Petunia gets a good grapple on the front there of Megalania, who pirouettes away and gets a good clobbering on that crushing arm of Petunia. Megalania had a bit of a tricky series last time out. Petunia, of course, a former winner in LEGO Wars, has won one accolade, the first international championship. Megalania looking for that first honour to their name. Megalania say they're still trying to channel their inner uppercuts. We haven't really seen that level of performance yet from Megalania, so we'll have to wait and see if they can improve. Petunia, meanwhile, pushes Megalania back into the corner, getting a good grapple hold, steering well clear of that weapon, but using their interesting new Keith system, the lifter system, lifting Megalania onto its side. Can it turn it all the way over? The screws in the corner could be the victim of Megalania here, but instead it's the arena wall that brings that weapon into check. Now, the only problem with Petunia's new lifter setup is it has to retract, it has to reset. but it seems like they've done that pretty speedily to me. Megalania, we haven't really seen that weapon into full effectiveness here. Petunia showing its rear end to Megalania. That's brave, but so far has been warranted because Petunia has been the dominant force in this fight. Megalania has really struggled to get going, has not caused the damage we would have liked to have seen from that vertical spinner, and it has been all the Dutch Clutch's machine, well, the Dutch Clutch's match, I should say, the Dutch Clutch machine's match. If I could use my words correctly, that'd be great too. Why did David hire me? I have no idea. Megalania, meanwhile, I don't know who hired their weapon designer or their robot designer, but they're having an absolute pig's ear of it at the moment. Petunia lifting Megalania up on its side again. Doesn't really give it a chance to run along the floor and use that weapon effectively. We haven't really seen it used effectively throughout the fight, have we really? And Petunia carrying and lifting Megalania. They'll have to let them go eventually, I'm sure. But great attack here by Petunia, holding them in the air. Brilliant work from Petunia again. Have not given Megalania an inch in this fight, have they? They've been excellent so far. Megalania, are they going to dive for the pit? They attempted to press the pit button, but nothing came of it. The pit button didn't fancy it. Megalania don't fancy it either by the looks of it. Petunia it's been one-way traffic, really, hasn't it? It truly has been one-way traffic. Petunia have been supreme in this fight so far. We're down to the last 10 seconds. The judges are going to have to make a decision, but I don't think there's going to be much decision to make because Megalania has done absolutely nothing. But of course, I'm not a judge. We'll have to see what they decide between Petunia and Megalania. Well, Megalania were hoping for a return to form, but on the evidence of this, they've got a long way to go to get back to that high ceiling they've set in seasons gone past. Petunia were dominant, pushed them back over and over again. They used the crushing arm to great effect. They used the lifting device to great effect, levering poor old Megalania onto their wheels over and over again. We didn't see the weapon get any significant hits in on Petunia, and they just controlled the pace of the entire fight. Petunia, surely a very easy dominant judges win is coming for them.
And the winner, by unanimous decision, is Petunia. A commanding display from Petunia as they move on to the quarterfinals and a rematch between either one of our final two machines, Zoidie Blue and the defending All-Stars champions, Waddledee Meta.
Roboteers, stand by. 3, 2, 1, activate.
Now it's time for our current All-Stars champions, Waddledee Meta, who sluggishly get going eventually. Well done. You may notice they've got a new attachment. They've got a sword in their right wing hand. I'm not entirely sure, but I'm sure that'll be significant at some point in the fight. I'm sure they'll be hoping it is. Zoidie Blue, meanwhile, a former opponent of Waddledee Meta. They fought back in the second series of LEGO Wars. On that occasion, a wheel came off, cost them the fight. They went out in the round of 16. So far, looking pretty good for Zoidie Blue this time, though. Those wheels holding on. They've also adapted the front claw mechanism to now have 2 claws on each of the mandible arms at the front as opposed to 1 to give them better purchase. You can see their lower green claws at the front. Waddledee Meta, speaking of purchase, we haven't really seen that weapon come into great effectiveness here from Waddledee Meta. A little bit too high, perhaps, for Zoidie Blue, who takes the pit button, and I'm just going to grapple hold of Waddledee Meta and throw them down the pit, are they? The All-Stars champions, the former series champions, caught in the claws? Surely not. Oh, Waddledee Meta gripping and holding on. Zoidie Blue pushing them. Can we get them down? They're right on the precipice here, Waddledee Meta. They're spinning the weapon furiously, but they're not really making any progress to or from the pits. Can Zoidie Blue get them down? No! But Zoidie Blue have caught themselves on the pit. Can Waddledee Meta now take advantage? No! Oh! And Waddledee Meta not quite managing to take advantage there. Zoidie Blue gets away. Stops the weapon of Waddledee Meta. Good driving by Zoidie Blue again. Good control. They're famed for it. A little bit sluggish though. Zoidie Blue to respond. In goes the pushing power of the clawed blue machine. Waddledee Meta needs to get some points on the board. They haven't really done much of significance in this fight, have they? It has to be said the champions have struggled so far with their opponents. And Waddledee Meta is now stopped on the arena floor. Back going again. Zoidie Blue, are you okay? Yes, they move again. Zoidie Blue pushing Waddledee Meta back towards the wall. Another good slam from them. It's a very aggressive fight. Oh, Zoidie Blue. Oh, what a mistake. They almost had Waddledee Meta in the pit. Can Waddledee Meta take advantage? Yes, they can. Zoidie Blue down the pit. What a costly error from them. They had the fight in the palm of their hand, but Waddledee Meta somehow escapes with victory. Well, for a good while, it looked like it might have gone to a judge's decision, but in the end, it was Zoidie Blue who kind of threw that fight away. I think they were on top for the majority of the fight, pushing Waddledee back over and over and over again. We saw them here grappling with them, almost throwing them down the pit, and the Waddledee Meta weapon didn't really cause any significant harm to Zoidie Blue. It was their own driving that cost them as they fell into the pit.
Victory from the literal jaws of defeat for the Series 2 champions as they move on to the next round. With our top 8 set, let's move to the top of our fight card as for the second year running, Atlas and Sweepy face one another in the quarterfinals. Last time it was Atlas who ground out a victory by the judges, so let's see if Sweepy can take revenge.
Roboteers, stand by. 3, 2, 1, activate.
Our first quarter-final then, bit of showboating to start off from Atlas and Sweepy. Sweepy, of course, that enormous bar spinner. Big impact at the start there on Atlas, who gets round to the sides, crucially, of Sweepy. They don't want to expose their more vulnerable tracks at the side, and a great push from Atlas, lugging that enormously heavy shuffling robot over towards the Utah zone. Can they lift them over and out? It would be an amazing achievement if the first ever robot ooted in LEGO Wars was Sweepy, of all things, the biggest and heaviest robot, I think, in this competition, it has to be said. An absolute unit of a thing. But no, I think Atlas is struggling to hoist and lever out Sweepy's enormous frame and weight thus far. Sweepy gets away and is starting to spin up that mighty bar again. Atlas releases and stays still. Oh, and an impact there at the front of the scoop again, but nothing crucial on Atlas has come loose or off. That's a good sign for them so far. If they can keep that bucket scoop facing towards the Sweepy weapon, then Atlas should be okay. They've been okay in the past. They've beaten Sweepy before on a judge's decision. I wonder if they can do the same again here. Maybe even go for the knockout win. We'll have to wait and see. Atlas, good control so far, getting to the front. Well, going front to front with Sweepy, using the bucket scoop and preventing damage from being taken. And good control as well from Atlas to sweep around the back of Sweepy, ironically, and push them inexorably, I think, towards the pit, which is opened by them. Can they just slowly lug them in that general direction? They can. Sweepy, oh, it's close, but not quite down the pit. And they escape. It's a relentless machine, isn't it, Sweepy? It just plods and plods on. But so far, not really being able to take advantage is Atlas. Though Atlas hasn't really taken any damage either. This is a very good, tense, tactical fight. A little bit of a slower pace fight. But we don't mind that. We're enjoying the tactical nature of it. Sweepy aggressively moving towards Atlas. But what can Atlas do? Retreat again. Make sure they get the angle right so that happens, so they don't take significant damage to their tracks, therefore can keep pushing Sweepy back into the wall. Great driving again by Atlas, but Sweepy progresses, and Atlas gets to the side once again, and can they push Sweepy towards the pit? No. Releases them. Sweepy gets away again, holds the centre of the arena, on close to the track, but doesn't get the track. They've got 6 seconds to really turn the pace of the fight in their favour, but it's going to go to a judge's decision between Atlas and Sweepy for a second time. I wonder if it'll go the same way as the first. A tense and tactical affair to start off the quarterfinals between Atlas and Sweepy, but Sweepy didn't really get it going in its usual stride, so to speak. Atlas was the one dictating the pace of the fight early on, lifting Sweepy into the air. Sweepy did get some big hits on the bucket scoop of Atlas, but no major damage to the armour, to the tracks, or anything like that. Atlas was the one kind of pushing them back and forward, and I think that will swing the decision in their favour.
And the winner, by unanimous decision, is Atlas! A closer fight than last time, but the result remains the same as Atlas continues to add to their win tally. They will face the winner of our next fight as Tantrum faces Emulator.
Roboteers, stand by. 3, 2, 1, activate.
Emulator taking on Tantrum in our second quarter final then. The current LEGO Wars champion, Tantrum, taking on a robot that went out in the heat. Seems like a bit of a mismatch really, but in truth it's probably a very even fight between these two. Of course, Emulator was second seeds for a reason. They came second in LEGO Wars 3. Have pedigree themselves and have caused damage early on to Tantrum here, and they're taking those hits from the Tantrum punching weapon quite nicely so far. Emulator pushing Tantrum back and have been pretty good at taking those hits, haven't they, so far? They've got past White Hole quite nicely. Well, I say quite nicely. They were very fortunate to get past White Hole. Tantrum, meanwhile, pretty dominant in their performance against Dior in the first round of the All-Stars. Emulator on the redemption path, on the war path, the revenge tour, if you like. Tantrum, meanwhile, trying to add further glory, further silverware to their trophy cabinet. Can they add more by taking on Emulator and taking Emulator out of the competition here? Weapon to weapon between the two, grinding on the forks of Emulator. Emulator, though, withstands that quite nicely. Tantrum, weapons stop for now. Everything okay with our champions? I wonder if it is. Emulator's weapon spinning quite nicely. One of the eyes looking a bit loose at the front of Tantrum. The sidearm looks a bit buckled, and Tantrum heading towards the pit button and pressing the pit button. That could be significant. They see their chances of trying to get Emulator down the pits. You'd probably argue they've got a better drivetrain than Emulator, but so far, you'd have to say Emulator withstanding Tantrum's attacks pretty nicely and bullying Tantrum into the corner. Tantrum pushes back. Good attack from Emulator, though. This is a very cagey fight here between these two. Definitely not a mismatch, as I said at the start of the fight. Emulator spins up to speed again. Grinding on the front armour. Doesn't quite get anything off, but still significant hits. And I think that Tantrum puncher, we haven't seen it working for a good while. I think it's safe to say that is now inactive. So that'll count against Tantrum should it go to the judges, of course. Emulator, like I said, on the revenge tour, trying to cause damage to Tantrum. Tantrum now, what's their tactics? What do? Do they just try and shove Emulator down the pit? Like this. Great push by Tantrum. The tracks of Emulator hovered over the pit and Tantrum almost followed them in. I have no idea how neither of those two went down into the pit. Good points on the board for Tantrum, but will it be enough if it goes to the judges, which it may well do? This fight is dragging on a little bit. Emulator have caused the damage, though. They've stopped the weapon of Tantrum. Will that be significant? 5 seconds to go for Tantrum to really make a big impression with the judges, but it isn't going to happen.
6.
And the judges' decision will have to come between Emulator and Tantrum. Well, a fight between two of our heavy hitters that remain in the competition, Tantrum and Emulator, wasn't really as explosive as we thought, though. We saw a fork of Emulator come off, an armour piece of Tantrum as well, weapon to weapon a couple of occasions between the two. But here is the key moment of the fight, I think. The weapon of Tantrum now non-functional for the remainder of the fight. Emulator was able to use its weapon for the remainder of the fight. Tantrum did get a good few pushes in, good control as always from them, but will it be enough to convince our judges?
And the winner by unanimous decision is Emulator. Another upset in the books as Tantrum's weapon breaks down, leaving them at the mercy of Emulator, who is well and truly back to their Series 3 best. Now it's on Shatter Star to make it 2 Woodrows in the top 4 against the Wobber Destroyer Mecha.
Roboteers, stand by. 3, 2, 1, activate.
Well, one hammer bot down for Mecha Bowser. Can they take out a second in Shatter Star? Well, not like that, Mecha Bowser. That's the wall. You need to not do that. Do what Shatter Star's doing and attack your opponent and not the arena. Shatter Star, good start from them. Taking one of those spines off the back of the shell of the King of the Koopas. Mecha Bowser trying to get the weapon up to speed and maybe do something similar to what they did to Agro Wobber in the first round. Rip the front wedge off to leave a bit more of the internals available. Well, they're firing a projectile there at Shatter Star, aren't they? That's not really good control from Mecha Bowser. That's great control, though, by Shatter Star, causing damage and hitting the pick button. They obviously feel they can get this fight over and done with pretty quickly here. Shatter Star chasing and harassing Mecha Bowser and using the hammer on the top of Mecha Bowser. Mecha Bowser up to speed now. Can they do some significant work on Shatter Star? No. Shatter Star in turn fires the hammer into the top of Mecha Bowser once again and cleaves off another spine. That's all 4 of the outer spines of Mecha Bowser's shell that have now been removed. Mecha Bowser's shell, of course, will keep spinning. It's just detailing and decoration, but it will count should it go to a judge's decision. Shatter Star, meanwhile, so far avoiding any harm's way or reach from Mecha Bowser. Mecha Bowser hitting the wall once again, not really getting any significant hits off on their opponent here. The same can't be said, though, of Shatter Star chasing Mecha Bowser towards the pit and activating the Jevon strats. Apparently is Mecha Bowser hiding around the back of the pit. We've all tried it once or twice. Some of us have done better than others. Mecha Bowser back up to speed once again, but not for too long as Shatter Star chases them down and stops that weapon from spinning, as it has done for most of this fight. It has to be said, Shatter Star have been very, very impressive. It really can't be emphasised enough. They've been brilliant thus far, getting from side to side of Mecha Bowser, not really taking any significant damage and causing problems for Mecha Bowser throughout the course of this bout so far. Still a long way to go, though. Anything can happen in LEGO Wars. Oh, good impact there from Shatter Star into the top of Mecha Bowser, once again stopping that disc in its tracks. Back up to speed, though, goes Mecha Bowser's weapon. But we haven't really seen that big knockout punch from Mecha Bowser, and Shatter Star so far have been very, very effective at just hitting and causing nuisance to Mecha Bowser. And the King of the Koopas could come a cropper here as Shatter Star continues to press, continues to chase down, and as we head towards the judge's decision, we'll be pretty confident that they could be progressing through to the semi-finals of the All-Stars here. Mecha Bowser, oh, unless there's a big twist at the end, there isn't. We'll be up against it from the judges, but that was a very impressive performance from Shatter Star. Well, you'd think that recent knowledge of beating Axbots would help them out here, Mecha Bowser, but it was Shatter Star throughout the fight that was just on fire, wasn't it? It was just causing Mecha Bowser all manner of issues, driving from side to side, making sure that they avoided that big nasty weapon which caused Agro to suffer so much earlier on. And throughout the fight, it was Shatter Star just dictating the pace of the fight and causing all sorts of problems for Mecha Bowser. Surely, there's only one winner here.
And the winner, by unanimous decision, is Shatter Star. It's heading into a busy night for the judges as the Veteran Axe takes revenge for their weapon type over Bowser to make their first semi-final appearance. They're destined for another tough fight though as Petunia and Waddledee do battle once more.
Roboteers, stand by. 3, 2, 1, activate.
The impressive Petunia taking on Waddledee Meta, who I think it's fair to say was pretty fortunate to get past Zoidy Blue, but that was much more like it. Immediate damage and devastation caused to Petunia. Can Petunia return in kind here? The crushing arm comes down. Doesn't get a grapple hold of Waddledee Meta. It's a bit of an awkward shape, Waddledee Meta. That weapon pretty slippery to get a hold of. The robot itself kind of angled down, so it's kind of hard to get a good grapple hold of. It's not quite as flat and as sleek as other robots in the competition, Waddledee Meta, and that's why it makes it so difficult for a crusher like Petunia to fight. Petunia, bravely though, goes face to face again with Waddledee Meta. Oh, that's more like it. Waddledee Meta peeling back a side panel. Will that matter later on, I wonder? Petunia though, bravely pushing back. Waddledee Meta, what can they do to get to the sides of Petunia? Petunia very well controlled, did so well in that first fight with Megalania, of course. Backing up though, Waddledee Meta trying to get up to speed, but doesn't quite manage it. Petunia now gets face to face with Waddledee Meta. Can they use the lifting device known as Keith to great effect? They can, but look at that there, twisting and bending the arm at the front of Petunia. That is not meant to look like that, and that is a big, big problem, because now not only does it render their lifter useless, it also means they can't bring their crusher into play, and now ripped away is the lifting panel of Petunia. That could be crucial damage, because not only does it mean that there's points on the board for, you know, losing the weapon, but it means their weapon effectiveness is severely hampered, and that will play in massively with the judges. And Waddledee Meta again comes in on the attack, using the weapon to effectiveness. Petunia, you went for the pit burn and decided, you know what, enough's enough. I'm just going to go in here, thanks. I'm out. That's the end for me. Well, if you'd asked me who was the impressor in the first round of this competition, you'd have said probably Waddledee Meta. It was a much more refined display from them, a bit of a return to their heritage of excellence, really. You know, the All-Stars champion. Petunia tried their best to close the angles down, but this is the significant moment of the fight. The lifting arm panel of Petunia gets buckled and bent and subsequently ripped away by Waddledee Meta. Petunia, diving for the pit button, just drove straight in. What a mistake!
A driving error from the Dutch machine takes them out, meaning it'll be Waddledee facing Shatter Star for a place in the grand final. Before that fight, we have a decider between Emulator and Atlas. In Series 3, it was the Vert dishing out their most impressive KO as they became the first robot to flip Atlas over, but Lifter would get revenge in a nervy fight in last year's International Special. Let's find out who is making the final.
Roboteers, stand by. 3, 2, 1. Activate.
The All-Stars semi-final then. Atlas taking on Emulator for the third time, one apiece in terms of their historic record, but so far Atlas has started off the stronger, pushing Emulator back against the wall, pinning them against that new polycarbonate arena wall. Emulator cannot get away from Atlas, who are just ramming them back. Sustained pressure from Atlas, using the bucket scoop to stop the weapon of Emulator from getting ahead of steam going. And a good attack again from Atlas, pushing back on Emulator again, in underneath the rear now of Emulator. Can they use that bucket scoop to turn Emulator over, maybe? What can Emulator do from here? They're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place, the rock being the arena wall and the hard place coming very much from Atlas's scoop. And Atlas doing brilliantly well to lever Emulator up, and over. Yes, it can! But can Emulator respond? Can they get back from there? They haven't quite got all the way over. They could fall kindly here if they're lucky, and they are. They fall back on their treads and are rocking and rolling once again. But Atlas so far have been the dominant force in this fight. What can Emulator do to respond? So far, so good for Atlas then. Should it go to a judge's decision later on? Atlas pushing Emulator back now. Pushing them slowly backwards towards the pit and towards the pit button. Careful, Atlas! Oh, well, that was inevitable, wasn't it? Atlas in the pit, of course they are. Well, it was one-way traffic from Atlas right from the start there, pinning Emulator back against the wall, using the bucket scoop to keep them pressed against the arena wall and preventing them from attacking, even turning Emulator up and over. A fortunate bounce from Emulator and good control was able to get them out of trouble, and then this was a horrendous error from Atlas, going straight down the pit.
Atlas plays themselves as they fall foul of the pit button, gifting Emulator a spot in the final against either fellow retconner Shatter Star or the defending All-Stars champs Waddledee.
Roboteers, stand by. 3, 2, 1. Activate.
So who will meet Emulator in the final? Will it be Shatter Star, the Hammer, or Waddledee Meta with that big horizontal spinning disc? And of course, our current All-Stars champion. Can they back-to-back the All-Stars Championship? Be an amazing achievement if they could do it, considering how poorly they started this competition. Shatter Star, meanwhile, have been quietly impressive throughout this. Waddledee Meta getting that weapon up to speed. Will they have learned the lessons that Mecha Bowser have taught them in that front end of Shatter Star is pretty impressive. Shatter Star pushing Waddledee Meta back towards the pit button, between the pit button and the screws. Can either of them take advantage of this? Waddledee Meta, statuesque at the moment, not really making a beeline across the arena, is it? And I wonder if Shatter Star has done something major to them. The pit release button has been activated by Shatter Star, pushing Waddledee Meta into it. The more of the pit is open. Waddledee Meta on the lip. Oh, has their luck finally run out? And it has. The All-Stars champion are down. It will be Shatter Star taking on Emulator in our All-Stars final. An impressive performance from Shatter Star there. As clean as you like.
A KO at last for Shatter Star takes them into the grand final, meaning we will have our first ever external winner in LEGO Wars. Before that fight there was a rerun of last year's final between Atlas and Waddledee. The former is yet to beat the Series 2 champs, but with this being their first draw outside of the final, maybe the reduced pressure will help out the old lifter.
Roboteers, stand by. 3, 2, 1, activate.
So here we go then, a rematch from last year's All-Stars final. This time, of course, we'll be settling for third place, and of course, the coveted Gareth Anstey Award. Love to see which way it goes, though. Waddledee Meta and Atlas have fought twice in the past. Waddledee Meta has come on top on both occasions. The big horizontal spinner, very, very effective against Atlas on their previous meetings, although it's not going to be an easy one for them to do. They try to swivel around and hit those tracks with the face spinner. Waddledee Meta, this time going with the aggressive arm setup. Looks a lot more fearsome and menacing, doesn't it? Like this. Atlas so far using that bucket scoop very well to deflect the spinner of Waddledee Meta. That's less effective. In underneath, Waddledee Meta using that spinner to try and hit those tracks. Pit button activated as well by Waddledee Meta. Will they be confident to get them down? Although Atlas here, great attack, have got a grapple hold of Waddledee Meta. Can they chuck them down the pit? They're so close. They're on the very lip of the pit. Can they get them down? No. Oh, was that the opportunity for Atlas? Gone begging, I wonder. We'll have to wait and see. Waddledee Meta now released. Atlas continuing to keep the pressure on, though. They're starting to get into this fight now. What can Atlas do? Atlas pushing and pressing and harassing Waddledee Meta. Waddledee Meta will try and spin around and slam those tracks off the sides of Atlas. Atlas lifts once again, levering Waddledee Meta onto its side and completely over. And can Waddledee Meta get away? I don't think they can. Atlas, finally, I think are going to beat Waddledee Meta in a fight. They are stuck up on their back. They can't get away. Atlas will take third in the All-Stars competition. Fourth place will fall to our former winners, Waddledee Meta, in a cracking campaign from the pair of them. They say the definition of insanity is to repeat the same thing over and over again and expect different outcomes. Well, that's exactly what we've done here on LEGO Wars. We've done it again. This time, Atlas with a different tactic, using that bucket scoop, grappling hold of Waddledee Meta, preventing them from really getting any momentum in the fight, and crucially keeping them away from those tracks. Atlas was on top throughout, and using that big bucket scoop, turns Waddledee Meta over to take home third place and a place on the podium.
Atlas finally topples Waddledee to take the bronze this time. Now all that remains is to crown a new All-Stars champion. It's been the best edition yet of this tournament, with drama and upsets, leaving us for the first time in LEGO Wars history with two external robots fighting for the title. Let's find out if it will be the former grand finalist Emulator or the rejuvenated Shatter Star taking home the trophy.
Roboteers, stand by. 3, 2, 1, activate.
The All-Stars final then. Emulator and Shatter Star. Shatter Star quietly impressive throughout. Emulator growing into this competition. Maybe a little fortunate to get past Atlas, but they will not mind that at all. They have, as I said, grown into the competition. They've been effective when they needed to be. Beating Tantrum along the way as well. A bit fortunate against White Hole, you could say. Shatter Star, meanwhile, did really well to get past Waddledee Meta, controlled that fight, beat Duck, of course, along the way, beat Mecha Bowser as well. These two worthy finalists. Both stout-hearted machines, both very effective machines, both well-driven machines. Which one will take home the ultimate prize of the All-Stars Championship here? Emulator forced back into the corner. Shatter Star unafraid, isn't it, to use the weapon on the Emulator spinning disc. They don't really mind taking a little bit of a hit there. Shatter Star chasing Emulator down. Emulator struggling to get in underneath. Shatter Star, that's a good attack from Shatter Star. They're in underneath Emulator now, but they're missing those swings of the hammer. So far, I'd say probably just about Shatter Star on top, but it's not a wide margin between these two, is it? Shatter Star, face to face, they will not mind that. Emulator's gone for the pit button. Are they going to try and shove Shatter Star down the pit? I wonder. Down comes the hammer again into that weapon. Oh! And something's come off. I think that's a part of Shatter Star's hammer. Yes, it is. The bracing at the front has kind of come away. Will that come into significance later on if it goes to the judges, I wonder? Emulator now, are we confident they can try and cause more damage to Shatter Star? But so far, it is pretty even Stevens. No one's landed a knockout blow yet, but Shatter Star now in underneath. Emulator, and down comes the hammer once more, and now grabbing hold of Emulator. Can they guide Emulator towards the pits? It's a viable tactic. Emulator, of course, opening that pit. Wouldn't it be ironic if they fell down and fell foul of the chasm that is the Pit of Oblivion? Can Emulator get away? Yes. Shatter Star releases, but Emulator drives up the front of Shatter Star once again. Those forks at the front of Shatter Star are so low to the ground. Oh, there's an opportunity. Shatter Star struggling for mobility. Can Emulator get the weapon into play? It could be significant to take one of those tracks off, but they can't manage it. They miss out on more than one occasion there. They need to get away quickly, and Shatter Star do get away. This is brilliant cat and mouse stuff. It's just tentative between the two, and there's still not really been a significant knockout blow between the two of them, with time trickling away here. Shatter Star hasn't been the most fluid throughout. Emulator have struggled to gain any purchase. With 5 seconds to go, it is going to go to the judges in the All-Stars final. Which way is it going to go?
6.
That could be significant at the end. The track being split on Shatter Star. Well, well, well. I would say it was a bit of a tentative and tense final between these two. Shatter Star early on getting some good hits on the Emulator disc, which did eventually take its toll, the weapon slowly splitting apart as the fight went on. Although a good grapple here again by Shatter Star could be crucial as well. Shatter Star losing mobility towards the end, and Emulator chasing and harassing their opponents. How significant will this be when it comes to the judge's decision?
And the winner by split decision is Shatter Star. Congratulations to Shatter Stars, they become the first external robot to lift a trophy in LEGO Wars after a fantastic fight. That's all from us tonight, but before we go, here's a sneak peek of what's coming up next.
What a snipe shot there by Waddledee too! But the pushing power of Agro has been absolutely fantastic! And they've got Emulator in the pit! They've done it! And look at this is classic panic attack here. And Tantrum are our new LEGO Wars Grand Champions!
We look forward to that special in the coming weeks, but for now I've been your host Dave the Smeg, and we'll see you in the next one.